I don't forgive Severus Snape. I recently finished a read-through of Harry Potter. This topic had been bouncing around in my mind before I started, so I took particular note this time around of Snape's interaction with Harry throughout the series. I simultaneously became convinced of two things. Snape is a real jerk, and he's a brilliantly written character. Out of several ideas I've had on my list, this is probably the only one where there is a disagreement in my own family. There are several Snape defenders in my household, so I took it upon myself to draft a convincing argument for why I can still hate him, all while begrudgingly admitting that he's extremely consistent and compelling. Snape's first interaction with Harry is straightforward and sets tone for the entirety of the series. Harry comes into class and sits down, and when Snape walks in, immediately silencing the rowdy first years, Harry dutifully takes notes as Snape begins his lecture. Then, apparently for no reason, Snape accuses Harry of not paying attention and embarrasses him in front of the class for not knowing several assorted facts about potion making that, at least in my limited knowledge, few first years aside from Hermione would have known. Suffice to say, things go downhill from there. Snape consistently beats down on Harry in class while praising his rival. Harry naturally develops a mutual hatred of Snape, and it results in a back and forth dynamic that carries throughout the entirety of the series. I'll now alternate to why this is so brilliant. Given her plans for Snape down the road, J.K. Rowling sets up Snape immediately in the series as a potentially distrustful character. He is a consistent annoyance to the point that Harry starts to think he's genuinely evil at several points throughout the series. It's a major plot point of the first book that Snape is the primary suspect. However, this theme carries into later books as well. And every time something goes wrong later in the series, Snape is usually thrown around as a suspect, though he's soon dismissed because of all that happened in Book 1. After all, they thought it was him before, but he was actually trying to stop Voldemort. Without realizing it, the reader's been put into a pattern of, it's not Snape, it couldn't be Snape. And this happens almost every book, and that's precisely what makes the end of the Half-Blood Prince so shocking. It was Snape all along. Or was it? Snape was almost impossible to figure out throughout the story, especially with those around him. He's the most trusted advisor to both Dumbledore and Voldemort, potentially one of the most impressive accomplishments in the entire series. Furthermore, both men are fully convinced that they have Snape's complete loyalty, and this even weaves into the thematic parts of the story. After all, it's Voldemort's blindness to love, that love which Snape had for Harry's mother, that made him blind to his servant's true loyalty. Snape's relationship with Lily is a core part of his character. There is an undeniable creepiness to it, as in many flashbacks throughout the series, we see Snape still obsessed with her even after she is married. He begs Dumbledore to hide her away when her son is marked for death, and he makes a deal with Voldemort to spare her to give himself some insurance. Notably, James, Harry's father and Lily's husband, is not spared in this deal. Snape would have been satisfied with the arrangement if James and Harry had died and she had lived. For some reason, though, I ended up thinking about this through Snape's eyes. The reason he was obsessed with Lily was because she was the single person in the world who ever showed him kindness, at least until Dumbledore entered the picture. Even as they were sent to separate houses in Hogwarts, they remained friends for several years there, and they only had a falling out when Snape called Lily a mudblood, about the worst insult a person could throw at someone. It's clear in the story that Snape deeply regrets this, yet he does nothing to remedy it in the moment, going further and further down the path of darkness and ending up at Voldemort's side. It is only when he is met with the consequences of his actions, the potential death of one person he loved, that he takes action to the contrary, and by then it's too late. Lily dies, and Snape is left with nothing but regret. Yet, his story doesn't end there, though it reasonably could have. Instead, he carries on, living a life marked by bitterness, but in service to good instead of evil. He was betrayed by darkness, and now he serves Dumbledore in an effort to make up for what he's done. Yet, of course, he doesn't carry this out perfectly. Snape is just mean, and there's no other way to put it. For instance, in the Goblet of Fire, Hermione is hit with a hex which causes her front teeth to grow. For those who don't know, they were somewhat oversized to begin with. And Snape dismisses Harry's concern for her with a, frankly, brutal roast. I don't notice any difference. Snape would, of course, mock Hermione at several other points throughout the series, but his particular grudge was with Harry. Snape had a long-standing and fairly justified bone to pick with Harry's father, who Harry was a near clone of. His apparent remedy to the problem was not forgiveness, nor even moving on, as Harry was nowhere near the jerk his father was, but instead of addictive bullying, and Snape turns himself in many ways into the very man he dated so many years ago. And he even supports the bully in Harry's ear, that being Malfoy. Snape becomes the very thing he swore to destroy, yet holds in his heart one grudge greater than this, that against Voldemort. Or at least I tried to convince myself that was what it was. I desperately wanted to believe this time around that Snape was working against Voldemort because he wanted revenge for Lily's death. The issue with this line of reasoning is that he was trying to save her before she was killed, and in truth, he just never stopped loving her. I can't really get around that. Snape being willing to kill Dumbledore in Dumbledore's order, and to walk the path of a Death Eater and have every last one of his friends abandon him, is all done because he deeply regrets what happened to Lily and wants to do his best he can in her memory. Snape turns to Harry after he kills Dumbledore in the tower, just before he flees Hogwarts, and Harry sees rage in his eyes. Snape is furious at what he has just done, just barely able to contain himself, and he is furious at Harry not because the accusations Harry throws at him are true, but because they are fundamentally untrue. This all culminates in Snape's final scene. The movie did well, but as I read the book this time around, I was struck by something as I read Snape's last conversation with Voldemort. Voldemort is clearly on another train of thought in his mind, and he's leading up to the point where he's going to kill Snape and, in his mind, at last take control of the Elder Wand. But Snape, in this entire conversation, is trying to convince Voldemort to let him go capture Harry and bring him to Voldemort. But of course, that's not at all what he's doing, and it's something you can really only appreciate in hindsight. Harry learns after Snape's death, watching the memories he leaves behind, that Harry must die in order to finally defeat Voldemort. Harry learns that he is a Horcrux, and that he must sacrifice himself for the good of others. It is a terrible secret, one that Dumbledore trusted to none other than Snape. Snape is the only one who knows, and he is ordered only to tell Harry once Voldemort is at his weakest, which of course he is on the night of the final battle. Hence, Snape's desperate attempt to convince the Dark Lord to let him find Harry, which is really just a ruse to tell Harry the truth. Despite all this, I don't forgive Severus Snape. He spends 6 years bullying high schoolers, refusing to let go of the past. It is that same refusal that means he cannot forget Lily, nor can he ultimately refuse to help her son. Harry is the son of both his rival and the woman he loved, and he hates and loves Harry equal in both parts. Yet love is, of course, more powerful than hatred.